So to break down the real differences, the kind of key differences between Buy Here, Pay Here and Lease Here, Pay Here, there's a few of them, but they're important. Obviously, I already mentioned with the Buy Here, Pay Here dealer, or with the Buy Here, Pay Here program, you're using a retail installment sales contract, which really only has 4 levers in it, right? You got your sales price, you got your cash down, you got your term, you got your APR, and that's going to dictate what your payment is. There's not a whole lot of flexibility in that. When you're using a lease contract on the leasing side, we add a 5th lever, as I like to call it, which is your residual value. And that opens the doors to all kinds of different opportunities, if you will, particularly in today's world when affordability is a challenge. I mentioned it earlier with inventory and the cost of inventory and how that translates into the customer's payment. With the residual value, you actually have the ability to adjust that. And it also means that you have the ability to shorten your term. And for anyone who's been doing subprime lending for a period of time, you'll know that the longer the term, the more risk you're going to inject into your portfolio. So if we can simultaneously shorten the term and keep the payment in a reasonable range for that consumer, that is going to pay dividends in all kinds of ways for your program and for your consumer. Another difference, and a big one here, between a retail installment sales contract and a lease, thanks to Reg M, does not have an APR. By definition, it has a money factor or a rent factor. It does not have an APR. You can translate that money factor into what's known as a interest rate implicit in the lease, but there is no APR. And what that means, particularly in states that have really low interest rate caps, or also known as usury rates, it oftentimes precludes those dealers from being able to even do an in-house program because there's just simply not enough margin in there to make it work. But with a leasing program, that's not an issue. There is no usury rate and no interest rate cap. And following on with that, I'm sure everyone is very familiar with Reg Z. When you're working with retail installment sales contracts, it dictates everything, right? That is our consumer finance laws. And it is roughly 317 pages long. If you were to read the entire thing, it is onerous, to say the least. Necessary, sure, but onerous. When you're working with a lease contract, you're actually working under Reg M, which is the Consumer Leasing Act. And that one, if you print it off, will be 37 pages long. And actually, about half of that entire Reg M is actually based upon how to market and advertise a lease compliantly. So only about 18 pages of it are actually around how you structure a lease and the compliance piece of a leasing